Mamelodi Sundowns returned to the top of the league by beating Orbit College by 2 goals to 0 and by completely dominating every aspect of this game. So we're going to look at what went right, specifically their movement and how it kept on just abusing Orbit College. So without further ado, let's get into a video. But before we do, please do make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We analyze Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates, and Mamelodi Sundowns. In some cases, maybe we'll see if we can go to other African games. So subscribe. So let's look at this. What is actually happening here? So what you are watching here, you are basically watching Mamelodi Sundowns having the ball, and you see that the player who's dropping into that space is Letlaku, who's written as a winger, a right winger. But look at the space that he's taking. He's basically in the right half space, and the midfielder decides to follow him. But look at what happens as he's being followed. So in him being followed, there is now space that can now be attacked. And the problem that Makesi had is that since these two center backs are occupied by one striker in Lebo Motiba who's staying central with them, to their left and to their right, there's likely going to be space. By the way, what you are seeing here with Letlaku pulling this midfielder from side to side is exactly what is happening here with Matthews as well, because now here you can see he's pulled him into the space, which means what you don't see here in this is that there's also a huge gap that is then created to the left and to the right of the defense. So what this ends up doing is that it creates these gaps between the defensive line of Makesi. But this is not the only example, because as this space is created, it also allows people like Jaden Adams to then make a run into that space, and then the defenders can just play that pass into that space. Once again, what you see here is that the two center backs are with Ulebo Motiba, because he's the target man. He's the person that they are worried about, that he will get the ball. Once again, what do you see? You will check once again that Letlaku is here, his man is following him, and then there are problems. In case this was not good enough, you will also see that one of the other problems that Sundowns were giving, or that will likely continue to give other teams, is that their fullbacks in Sbia here, they stay wide, very wide. There's Umrena, who's also on the other side, staying wide. What does this do? You have Motiba, who's pinning the center backs and forcing them to stay central. But you have Umrena, who's now forcing this left back to kind of stay with him. In this case, this guy is just completely ball watching. He does not even see what's happening with Umren, which is the same thing that is happening on this side. It's just that the ball is this side. The right back is fully concentrated in making sure that if Sbia tries to do something, he will attack him. But the question also that keeps on happening is, this guy, can he outpace Matthews when it has to do with attacking the space behind? The answer is likely no. So this is strategic. They've made their wingers to just stay in the half spaces, and it's much more effective now. They've been doing it, but now it's like they've taken to another level. So after stretching the team to one side, then the ball is then switched to the other side. And if Morena crosses the ball better here, then Sundowns score a goal. But they don't. So if you watch how the space gets created and exploited again, you will see the same thing happening in the second half. Letlaku drops into that space. And as it drops, this is a secondary problem that Orbit College had in this game. So they have these hyper-aggressive midfielders who want to put pressure on the ball. Okay, it's nothing with midfielders putting pressure on the ball. But the point here in football is that if we do something, we must do it as a team. But if you look at what is happening with Orbit College, the fullbacks, the center backs and the back line, the entire back line, are staying put because they want to protect the important zone. this zone route right here, the zone 14. So they are kind of just staying there and making sure that nothing happens. But in them staying, they are so glued and ball watching and looking at the person who has the ball that they are not even aware that the ball can now, let me just let this run for a second, the ball can now be played into that space. And if again the ball is crossed earlier and better, then that's a goal. But lucky for them, it doesn't happen. Now, if you look at the goal that Sundowns scored, same principles that they were doing in the whole match. Santos drops, and in him dropping, what has basically and essentially happened is that there is now space that has been created. The midfielder now has to step up and make sure that Santos does not drive with the ball. Tembazwane has identified the space that Santos dropped from, and now he's now using that space. Now, after that happens, someone has to step up to Tembazwane and try to close him down. That's a center back. And if a center back drops, that means Ulukele on top here, he now has a job to do. He has to go and cover the space that is left behind by the defender, because that's a very dangerous area. But in him trying to do that, that means he has left Usbia, who is the man that was marking, who they do not want on the ball because he's then going to cross the ball. Well, he then gets on the ball. Now there's no one putting pressure on him. But look at the movement of Muniz. If you look at it, it's very intentional. It's subtle, but he makes a run and then he stops because he doesn't want to be offside. But he then scans. Can you see right now, Muniz? He looks around and is checking who's marking me at that moment, if you look at his head. And then if you push the video forward a bit, he's looking at the person who's crossing the ball, and then he kind of just changes direction to his right, and then he's lost his marker. And then, as they say, the rest is history. Sundowns scored their second goal. How they scored their first goal, it was just Orbit College trying to be smart, and then the ball gets blocked, and they end up conceding a goal. So what we saw from this game is the fact that Sundowns were clearly superior in terms of how they played their game, but at the same time, there were a lot of other things that you felt like Orbit College could have done better. There are some of the things that I did not put here, but let me show you one example of those things that I'm talking about. Like, okay, so if you look here, not this one, you've watched this clip before. Do you see that Orbit College are trying to mark Sundowns man to man across the pitch? How does that make any sense? You are fighting relegation and you think you can go pound for pound with the team that is on the other end of the table. They are trying to go and press them. And the problem with that is Sundowns will play just one pass and then they've broken your entire system. And one through ball, you are dead. So I get that coaches want to be bold sometimes, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to defend space and forget trying to go for man, because your entire team is probably worth 50 million and they spent that on one player. So don't take chances here. Do what is going to be best for your survival. But how did you guys see this game? Do let me know down on the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.